Guys, welcome back to Medical Coding with Blue. Today's episode is all about my typical day as an outpatient medical coder. If you are brand new to my channel, welcome. I am Blue. I'm a medical coder. Okay guys, first things first. First thing you gotta know, I am not a tech savvy person. So this is not a typical day in the life video where I'm taking you and showing you all these clips of my day during the day. You won't see me like demonstrating how I code and things like that from an actual chart. You won't see that because number one, I would never put patient information at risk. That's number one. Number two, even if people have suggested, oh, you could just blur it out. Even if you did, I'm sure there's some way, some tech person can be able to uncover that, and then you have a whole nother mess on your hands. So no, I will never do that. But what I will do is I will talk through what I do, and I think that's just as good because this is like us having a conversation anyway. Okay, so, and I will also say this: every place is different. Not all coders will have my same experience. This is just what I do at my hospital and how it's been set up this way. Again, it really all depends on where you work, what types of patients you're seeing in that facility, and the kind of care that's being provided. So that all has a big thing to do with it. But what I do on my typical day, I have two clinics that are assigned to me, orthopedics and podiatry. I have roughly 15, give or take, providers that I work with on a daily basis. And so what I do when I come into my office is actually embedded in the podiatry clinic. So I have a space in the clinic, and the way that the clinics are set up is podiatry and orthopedics are right next door to each other. I am easily accessible to all of my providers, which is fantastic for myself and for them, but mostly for them because they can reach out to me at any time. And it's good to have that presence in the clinic because it does help them when they do need it. Okay. So what I do when I start my day is I will run a report that will tell me what patients were seen the day before in my clinics, okay? And I will know how many encounters there were, okay? Because I'm working in the outpatient setting, right? So it'll tell me how many encounters there were, who had what, and so that's how I get my day started. Then I will start my work, and I will start working on the priority things that I need to do first, and that's the order of how I do things. So I'll just bring up all of my systems and start to, get ready to start my day. I will prioritize anything that is sent to me during, the day before or in the morning by my supervisor. For example, we just had gotten pulled from our clinics to go help out in another clinic. I was pulled to help out in pulmonary. So I got to do that again. It's been a while since I've done pulmonary. But it does happen. It doesn't always happen, but it does happen where another clinic in your facility may need some help, either because there's no coder or the coder's been out, or something happened where people have to be brought in and kind of help to clean up the backlog. So that's what I was doing last week. Was I got pulled for this task. And it's been a while, again, since I've done it, so I had to kind of go back over some of my notes from before and kind of pull up some of the things that I had from the book, from my CPT book, and to kind of remember about the procedures. Because with pulmonary, when you're working in the pulmonary clinic, there are some procedures that are included with other procedures. So some procedures cannot be coded together, and I had to remember which ones those were. And then there's some procedures that are just not picked up because, again, it's an inherent part of another procedure. So I had to remember and recall all of those things. I got that assignment done. It took me 2 days to get it done, really. And so it wasn't so bad. And I was like, oh, this is fun. I forgot how fun it was. And it's been a few years since I've been in pulmonary. But anyway, I went back to working on my work in the orthopedic and podiatry clinics. Now, how I work between those two is what I will do is sometimes I'll start in podiatry because podiatry is a little bit faster for me to get through. With orthopedics, because there's always a change in the providers, we just got a new batch in the last 6 months. And so I'm still working with them to kind of help them along and help them get where they need to be. And so it takes a little bit of time to do that. And with that said, my podiatrists have been there and they're established, and we have been working all together since I've had that clinic since 2012. I was in that clinic, and from then on. But when we got embedded into the hospital, it was about 2016 was when we were embedded in the hospital. So it's been the same providers ever since then. And so I'm very lucky in that. And I have a great and fantastic group of podiatrists that I work with. And one of them is fixing to retire. He was very proud of himself. A couple of weeks ago, he said, I have 8 more weeks. I go, no, don't tell me, because I don't want to be sad. I will be sad. I will be legitimately sad when this provider does leave, because he was a challenge when I first got him. When I first got him, he did not want to do what I asked. He didn't understand the queries. He didn't understand why I was querying him. He's never been queried. He's always said it this way. Why does he have to change it now? And I'm like, there's no clarity here. I need to know which side, I need to know what are you doing, And so it was educating with him and working with him that was a struggle for weeks. And it wasn't until I had gone through all of my bag of tricks and I had tried every single approach that I knew to work with him to get some, kind of like, okay, let's get this going right, that I finally said, you know what? You win. I said, you win, I lose. And I mean, there's just nothing I could do for you, other than I have to just code what is there. And if it's not there, it's just not there. You know what I mean? Like there's nothing that I can do. I just have to push it through as a unspecified or whatever, And so after that, it was like, oh, he's like, well, really? And I said, I don't know what else to tell you. I mean, like, I'm showing you why it's important to be, left, right. I'm telling you why, and you just don't want to, so I can't force you. So, well, there you go, And next day, he had his documentation all good. And so I was like, well, I said, that's all it was. It was just like me showing you the white flag. It's like, I can't give up. He's like, well, no, I just, he said, did you see what I did? Yes, I saw what you did. So, but it has been a fantastic relationship, even during that time, because he did teach me about, working with providers and what they need. Why do they need to know certain things when it comes to documentation, like left or right, when, why? So I had to explain this to him, and learning this from him, I was able to use this in, okay, when I'm explaining to a provider, why do we need laterality, left or right, to be documented? It is because of this. And when I can show them in the book, then they're like, oh, okay. Because that's when I had to really pull out, all of my, all of my tools, which was, for him, I had to pull out the podiatry coding companion, which showed all the things that were involved in certain procedure codes. Because he was like, why are you taking these procedure codes out? I said, well, some of these are already included and these ones don't apply. He's like, well, why? And then when I showed him that book, then he understood. So again, that helped me with my other providers. But I will miss him when he leaves. So I'll be very sad. But at the same time, when I'm working through my encounters during the day, if I have an encounter that needs a query, I will send the provider the query and wait for their response, obviously, but move on to the next encounter. Our work queues are in a work queue, again, situation, but I can just see what I need to see for my stuff, for my assigned clinics, which is great. And the system that we use is a little challenging. It's a little on the challenging side. It's still new to us, relatively new to us. We've only been working with it not that long, but it still has its differences from our old system, which I preferred the older system because the older system was a lot more intuitive when it came to coding. And so, I don't know. But other than that, Then like I said, I'll prioritize anything that my boss sends me. If I have to attend a education meeting, we have education meetings once a month, and it's for all of us, and we have it over Microsoft Teams, and it's just an educational meeting, and we do get CEUs for that, which is great because to be able to keep up with your credentials, you have to be able to report your continuing education units. So it's nice when you work for a place that gives them to you for free. And so we will do those once a month. We will listen to those webinars, and then we will do, the little quiz afterward, and that's how we get our CEUs. And so that's always nice. Sometimes we will have group meetings as coders. The last one that we had was in January. It was very exciting because the thing that I love to do is teach. That is like my most favorite thing when it comes to coding is aside from the coding itself, because you can get really down a rabbit hole sometimes with these things, but especially when you start coding for same-day surgeries. But when it comes to teaching and you're teaching other coders, I think it's fun because there's things that maybe somebody else sees that I don't see, or maybe I see that other people don't know. And because I spend so much time educating myself and so much money educating myself, I go to conferences for AHIMA every single year, except for when it was the pandemic. I hadn't gone for a few years. 2020, 2021, 2022, I did not go. 2023, I did go last year. But for those 3 years, I didn't go. Oh, and the year that they were in LA, I broke my rib that year. So I did not go that year. It's no bueno. So, but the investment that I spend in myself to be able to learn, I love to share. And so in January, we had a coder meeting, and it wasn't just us. It was like our whole department. So it was like release of information and people for medical records. And I actually had a hand in making the questions because we played Jeopardy. I have done the Jeopardy game for my Patreons, which I love to do because I think it's so much fun. It's to play Jeopardy. And so when we were deciding to do this, I wrote all the questions, and then we did the whole board, like how it's set up in the Jeopardy game. And so we asked the coders these questions, everybody, from the whole department, these questions. And so it was a lot of fun. And a lot of people were like, oh, they didn't know that, or they didn't think about that, or like, oh, So it was a lot of fun. And that's like the best days for me when I do things like that. And it was really great to have that experience. The other days that I can do occasionally is have training with my providers. I had one in January as well. It was the week after Jeopardy. And so what I do for my providers, whenever I can get time with them, which is not always time when they're in big groups, okay? If I can catch them individually, but to get them where they're all together is very hard because there's always something going on. But when I do get them together, what I like to do is I like to get right to the point. When I'm, giving my presentations, I have them become a very active part of the presentation process because I already know what I wrote. So I tell them, that you're going to be a part of this conversation. This is going to be all of you, involved in this. And so they like it. I like it, and it works, and it does a lot of wonders for the documentation quality, which is fantastic for me because the better quality I can get out of them, the less queries that I have to send, the faster I can get through their documentation, the faster I can code. And that is ultimately the goal, is to get through the documentation quickly. So that way, I have more of an opportunity to get even more, more encounters done and completed. And I also tell my providers too that, when you leave here, you don't know who your coder is going to be, and not all coders are like me. So I said, I try to tell as many people on my YouTube channel how to interact with providers, but sometimes providers can be intimidating. They go, well, what do you mean, Blue? What do you mean intimidating? I said, y'all know what y'all do. I said, but I I want y'all to be prepared for the real world. And I want you to be prepared for, like, okay, if my coder doesn't know, or maybe my coder is new, I need to make sure that I have all of my documentation here so that it's clear what happened, And so I always encourage them also, talk to your coders, okay? I've had a few providers leave me, and I've always told them the first thing you need to do is find out who your coder is, and you need to get a meeting with them, because the coders a lot of times are going to be too scared to talk to you. So you got to make that first move. Now, whether some do and whether some have and some haven't, it's neither here nor there. But I have heard back from a few of them, and they have said, yes, Blue, that was the first thing I did, was talk to them, because they do still talk to me, providers that have left. So it's really nice to have that great relationship, and that they are so willing to share their experiences after they leave. And so that's nice. But that's part of what I do is, as a coder, is I wear many hats, and being an educator is one of them. Not all coders have this sort of relationship with their providers, and some supervisors don't want coders to talk to their providers as much. Some supervisors are just like, no, we have an educator for that. Maybe your facility has a designated educator, maybe they don't. But if they don't, it's on you as the coder to be able to do that. And when it is you, it's a good thing, because again, having that good conversation, you're going to be able to get more in depth with these notes and be able to recognize and see things that you normally wouldn't have been able to see, because we don't have, as coders coming in with no medical experience, we have no medical experience, no medical background to kind of lean on. When nurses or scrub techs or surgical techs, when any of those folks come in and they're coders, they get that, looking at the documentation, they already know what certain words mean, and they know all of these things, and they know the abbreviations. And whereas a new coder would have to look that up and, gosh, what is that? What is this? And so that's the thing that is different, And when you have a good relationship with your providers and they teach you, you teach them, it is it's a very good back and forth relationship. That's when everybody wins. But not everybody is that enlightened to be able to get that, because some coders are scared. They're scared. They write me and they tell me that they're scared to talk to providers. But I always look at it like this. I was scared at once too, because I thought, why would they want to talk to me? Why would they want to know anything that I had to say? And then I had a provider tell me, Blue, you're the coder. I don't know anything about coding. And I was like, okay. So you know the coder stuff, I know the doctor stuff. I was like, well, that makes sense to me. And it's true. We have to know a lot, and we have to know about the rules and the guidelines, stuff that they don't know. And we have to help them to learn this stuff. And so, that's all there is to it, with that part. But at the end of the day, I total up all of the things that I've done, and all the encounters that I've worked and things like that, and I put those numbers into a workload report to send to my supervisor. And on this workload report, I write down how many encounters I completed, if there was any education that I had to do because, like, we had a class or something, or if I was tasked to do something else. I need to write that in there, because sometimes when you're tasked to do something else, your numbers can drop. And it's not necessarily your fault, because you're doing something different. Like I was doing with pulmonary, but my numbers rebounded the next day. I just needed a day to kind of get myself, okay, I'm remembering again. But when you do that, all of that, gets documented onto this workload report, and then it gets sent to my supervisor. If I had a provider come over and ask me any questions, I can take that time as well. And depending on how long that interaction was, if it's just a couple minutes, I don't put that on there. But if it's like 15 minutes, then yes, I will put that on there. I spoke with Dr. So-and-so for 15 minutes about questions, or whatever. I'll just put something very brief, so that way my supervisor knows what I was doing with my time. And that's basically what it's for. They can always run a report that shows how long you were in a record, but it can get tricky especially if you forget to get out of a record. Sometimes that happens. I've had it where, and this is where that new electronic record is kind of weird, because sometimes when I'm in it and I have the screen up where I'm entering in the codes, it'll disappear. I don't know where it goes, and so I have to get out and get all the way back in. And then when I get out and get all the way back in, then it shows like it's brand new again. And so, okay, I have to go put those codes back in again. So I put the codes back in again, get out of that record, and then lo and behold, the screen pops up again like, hey, hello, it's here, and so it doesn't look like I got out of that record, even though I'm already on to the next record. So that's why I say this new system is not very intuitive. And so it's just, I don't know if it's just a bug that it needs to be worked out or what, but yeah. but that, I say that to say they can see the minutes that you are logged into that particular encounter. So when I see things like that, I do talk to my boss about it and be like, hey, did you know this? And she's like, well, they've been having all kinds of weird stuff happen. So, but that's just something that you should know too, is that they can see how long you're in the record. And I've talked about this before on other shows, that if you are, if you're wanting to work from home remotely, just so that you can raise your kids and you can run around and do errands and things like that. And, I'll just open an encounter and then just go take off real quick and come right back. They can see how long you've been in that encounter. And then they can always run a report to, okay, like what happened here? Why were you in this encounter that should have taken you maybe 10 minutes? And it shows that you were in there for 40 minutes. And this is like a straightforward appendectomy, for example. What were you doing? I'm just saying. So, but with that said, I will, again, make note of anything and then talk to my supervisor if I need to. But for the most part, everything gets documented, and then I send my report on, and then I'm off work. So that's typically what I do. Now, I will take breaks during the day. We get 2 15-minute breaks. We get one in the morning, and then we get one in the afternoon after lunch, about an hour or so after lunch if you want to. What I do, you can't combine your break times with your lunch, though, just so you know. So about mid-morning, I'll go and I get a coffee, and then that's just at the right time, because I don't like coffee first thing. I like to get in, get settled, get going, and then go get the coffee, because if I have coffee too early, we'd like, zing, so, but that's what I do. And so anytime during the day, again, I may get calls from other coders who have questions, and I'll help them out. Sometimes, because there's things that, and everybody knows when it comes to injuries, I'm the girl. When it comes to injuries, everybody hates injury coding at work, and I hate it. It's so hard. No, it's not hard. It's not hard. It's actually not hard at all. But it's the nerd in me that loves the injuries, and not only that. Working in orthopedics and podiatry, I see injuries all the time, every single day. And so the only other ones that see injuries every day is the ER coders, and even for them, they're just like, I hate it. Like, why do you hate it? It's so fun, and they're like, Blue. But anyway, so that's what I do, and that's my typical day. I work from a queue, I read these notes, I process the encounters, and then I move on to the next one. And I mark off what I've done, and I tally it into a spreadsheet, and I send it to my supervisor. And this spreadsheet was created by my supervisor, and it has the formulas in it. So it tells me if I am meeting the quota, if I'm not meeting the quota. I don't panic if I don't hit the quota for the day, because of the simple fact that it's quality over quantity. There's going to be some days where it's going to be a little bit easier for me, because maybe I have a lot of post-op patients that day, and so to process those is a little bit quicker. But there's some days where it's going to be a little bit slower, because it's going to be a lot of accidents and things like that happen, and there's a lot of traumas, and you have to go in and you have to look at all these things. And so I would rather get it right than get it wrong, because again, at the end of the day, it's somebody's record. Okay, so I don't panic, because overall, everything I do balances out, you know, and it balances out if you're not messing around on your phone or doing other things or talking to people like you shouldn't be. It all balances out if you are doing your work. Not to say that there's not time to socialize, there is, but there has to be a good balance. And once you have that, then you're fine. And people know too that I am there for business, and I don't I don't socialize. I don't with the other girls. I don't. There's like maybe a couple of the coders that I talk to, maybe, and then that's it. For the most part, my whole goal and mission at work is to be there for my providers. And that's my goal. So with that said, that's going to be my show for today. But yes, that is a day in my life as an outpatient medical coder. I code, I do education, I go home. Then I do this, YouTube, Patreon, coaching, resumes, tutoring. Yeah. Anyway, so with that said, I'm going to wrap this one up. Thank you guys so much for joining me. If this video helped you, please like, subscribe, and share, and I'll see y'all next time. Bye.